Welcome to Berean Babes, where theology matters. I'm your host, Vale Chikuni. Today, I want to talk about something that's very prevalent, especially amongst Christian couples. We are going to be talking about IVF, in vitro fertilization, especially for Christians. So, I have this article that I want to share with you guys. According to this article, I'm just going to read a little bit, and then we'll jump right into it. Right? It's saying, okay, I need to get glasses. I keep saying that. Okay, Baptist, Methodist, Lutheran, Presbyterian, Episcopal, United Church of Christ, Jehovah's Witness, Seventh-day Adventists, and Mennonites. Right? These churches have more liberal attitudes to the traditional infertility workup and treatments. All of them accept, excuse me, IVF with spouses, gametes, and no embryo wastage. Okay, Christian Scientists. This church has no objection. They have no objection, and I think we have whereas Anglican assisted reproductive technology was developed in UK, blah blah blah, and allows they do, Anglican they do, they accept. You have the Protestant church accept traditional treatments of infertility, assisted reproductive technologies, partially accepted only when the gametes are from the married couple and when the procedure avoids damage to the embryo. But the Vatican, the Catholics are completely against it. Okay, so those are, these are the Christians, right? Organizations like, the denomination and their position when it comes to IVF. Okay, so most IVF centers where they do this, these are not Christian organization hospitals per se. What they want is when people go get these particular treatments, what is the desire? They desire to have children. They desire to have a baby. So these clinics are designed to make sure whatever happens, you walk out of that hospital, you walk out of their clinic with a baby. Okay, how does and here's the procedure. They do the procedures can vary, they can work different, but when it comes to a context of a Christian, right, what happens is that they'll have a woman, they'll put a woman on hormones so that she'll be able to ovulate more so that they can harvest eggs. Okay, and they can harvest eggs, however many eggs that they want to harvest, because they want to make sure that, okay, we want to harvest the eggs, be able to, good eggs and everything. So most clinics at the minimum, they're going to harvest 12 eggs out of a woman. Okay, so when they harvest these 12 eggs, they will fertilize all of the 12 eggs. Now, just eggs on their own, that's not a baby. Okay, a man seed on its own, that's not a baby. Okay, but once fertilization has taken place, the hospitals and everything, they have no control over as to how many eggs are going to be fertilized. So they harvest 12 eggs, they're going to inject all those 12 eggs, and whatever happens after that, it's not up to them. Nature will take its course. So let's just say, for example, out of 12 eggs, 6 of them are fertilized. Okay, when an egg is fertilized, that's you have an embryo, so you have a human life, you have a DNA of another human being that is in a test tube. So meantime, like a woman is going to, you have to inject yourself. The ethics on those issues, I leave that up to you. But my point is this: whenever this happens, you have to decide how many of um how many of the babies are going to be implanted in the woman's womb. So, people would be like, okay, two babies, three babies. Remember, like, the incident of Octomom, she ended up having 14 babies. So she didn't want to destroy any of her embryos. So she ended up having four babies. It's very risky. It's very dangerous. But for a Christian woman, however many embryos that you're going to take home with you, if you take all of your babies with you, I guess then that's fine. But that's not what happens most of the times, right? People will uh go maybe for one baby, two babies, or three babies. The other embryos, what happens to the other embryos? They discard the embryos, okay? Well, what is exactly happening? Those are babies in test tube. They're just going to discard them. So, we know out here Christians, we all gung ho whenever it comes to abortion. But if a woman is sending her babies in a test tube to be discarded, you've just done the same thing, because you've sent your children to be pretty much, just to be thrown out. Then other people, that's not what they do, right? They'll put the babies, they put them in the freezer, right? And you have to pay for the storage. So what you're doing, you're putting your babies in a holding pattern in a freezer for however long, because you have to keep paying. And some women, they'll be like, okay, you know what? I'm only taking four babies. The rest, send them to for stem cell research. So what happens when you're sending those embryos to stem cell research? So you have just sentenced your baby to an order of science. So the question for couples, for Christian, they should ask, how are you deciding which baby lives and which baby dies? So you are pretty much doing the same thing that these other women are doing, going to this Planned Parenthood, and they're just killing their babies. But you are also doing the same thing. It's just a different method that you are, it's just a different method how you are sentencing your own children to death. So if people decide to use these procedures, as long as you go for all your children, you haven't sentenced a single one to death, yeah, we can talk about the ethics of it, because all the things that you have to do to get to that place, okay? But my issue is like, okay, we're talking about life. So I'm sure you've heard the term snowflake babies. Most people be like, okay, we're going to send our embryos up for adoption. How many people do you know are adopting embryos? Because what happens is, these places, right, they're in business. So it's in their interest for you to for them to have embryos from you and from the other person as well. Because if they just give you someone else's embryos, they're not making money off you, but they make more money when you go throughout the whole treatment. Plus, when you have your own embryos, those are more viable than someone else's embryo being put in you. Okay, like for whatever the reason, there's always complications. Okay, there's always complications. Now I remember, there's a story, like a lady, she ended up adopting an embryo that was on a freezer, I think, like, like for 25 years. And they ended up having the baby, two beautiful babies. That was beautiful, awesome. They ended up even adopting those embryos. They were actually like two sisters. There was another lady, she, adopted the embryo and she ended up having twins. So that's good that, there's people out there who are adopting these embryos. But for the most part, most of them are either in a holding pattern in the freezer, or they are discarded. So as for Christians, it's not just a matter of you walking out of the clinic with a baby in hand. Okay? Are you walking out of it with a baby in hand at the expense of how many babies? You might walk out with four babies, but you've sentenced one baby to be discarded, two babies to be discarded, or they're just in a freezing holding pattern. In fact, there's actually another lady, she's not able to go back for the other embryos, but she doesn't want to discard them, but she keeps paying for the storage, because she understands, like, no, those are my babies out there, so these are the things that it's something that's sort of like happened, it's a silent thing that goes on, especially in a Christian community. And uh you cannot justify that. It's easier, you have a baby and everything is out there, but these are the things that are going on. Okay, so my emphasis is this: if people decide to do this, whatever you do, make sure you claim all your babies. If you don't claim any of your babies, what happens with them, right? Because these are human beings, um in this test tube, right? And they're image bearers of God. Those are the early stages of life. If they fertilize and the embryo dies on its own, nothing, you didn't do anything, that's there's nothing you can do about that. But if it's an embryo that's in the test tube, and that is your baby out there in that freezer, regardless of how many baby you're gonna walk out with. So the bottom line is, how many babies that you're going to have in this test table, be sure to claim them all. But most of the times, like, people be like, oh, what, I'll come back next year, third year, fourth year. The question is, how do you know that you'll be able to do those things? If you're able to do those things, praise the Lord. If not, those are the questions that you need to answer before your maker. Okay, there's nothing wrong in having children, there's nothing wrong in using technology, but we already know, right? We can use the technology for good, we can also use technology for bad. For some things might look good, but what's underneath it, if it undercuts a biblical worldview, biblical ethic, there's no excuse about that, right? Life begins at conception. So that's all that I wanted to share. I thought that was very interesting how even on the article right here, right? Like, they actually say that they are not against everything, so long as there's no damage done to the human embryo. Okay, strongly disapprove research of any type of human embryo. That's for the Vatican. So, like, each denomination has a different approach how they do see IVF. Okay, how they see IVF. So I thought that was very, very interesting. But all of them, at least, with the exception of the Christian Scientists, they are very, they forbid the use of um donor. How people get the donor to do this thing. So it's just like, hey, this is no. Okay, this is no. This is no. They don't support surrogates as well. It's prohibited. This thing is very common, especially in Hollywood, right? This is what Hollywood people are into. But they've also arrived in our Christian community. As you can see, the Vatican, Eastern Orthodox, the Protestant Church, Anglican, Baptist, Methodist. So if you're a Christian, you're going to fall under one of these categories. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is all that I had for you guys today. I hope you find this to be informative to you, but I'm very curious and interested to know, what is your view on this thing? What is your take? What objections do you have? And what comments do you have? All right, I hope see you on more coming this week. Stay tuned. Until next time, remember, theology matters.